My so-called best friend ruined my life after I helped her make millions. You would not believe she stole my entire wealth and left me completely shattered. Megan, my best friend from high school, had a dream, and I also shared that vision with her. It's funny because we pretty much grew up in the same house. I was more practical, while Megan was the one that had big ideas, but they never did get executed. That is where I stepped in. We spent years talking about building a business that would fund both of our Pulitzer Prize-winning dreams. Life had other plans, though. I ended up getting a boring marketing job while Megan took a jump from one dead-end job to a new one every few weeks, chasing half-baked ideas that never clicked. But everything changed when lower single-digit IQ versions of us decided to go out. She actually came up to me, and thankfully had a solid plan. A plan that was both elaborate and realistic, something that could actually allow us to make money. "Look," she exclaimed in excitement as she revealed her research and projections. "This is it, Emma. This is the idea that is going to change everything." I was always skeptical, and this time was no different. I really thought Megan would pull one of her wild schemes. But with Megan's new tech startup concept, which was a platform designed to connect small businesses with freelance digital services, I started seeing the potential. It was simple and elegant. It also filled a gap in the market that no one had tapped into. Given my marketing and business development background, I knew that we could make this work. Megan, on the other hand, had the vision and creative spark to make the platform stand out. This is why I thought we made a perfect team. Or so I thought. For months, we were tirelessly working on the business plan. While Megan was out there chatting with potential investors and partners, I was working in the shadows and setting the infrastructure. I reached out to my industry contacts to help us secure first clients. Then, I spent countless hours developing the website, crafting the user interface, and launching ads for our new platform. Megan was the face of the company, and I was more than happy to let her take that role. She was charismatic, magnetic, and knew how to sell a vision in a way that I could never. But I always stood behind knowing that I was the one who gave that dream life. And it all worked out. In no time, we had investors interested, and within a year, our startup was starting to turn heads in the industry. We got featured in magazines, asked to speak at conferences, and soon enough the money started coming in. It wasn't just a success, it was a sensational success, and we both knew it. For a period of time, everything was as good as it gets. We were earning more than we had imagined, and the bond we shared was unbreakable, at least that is what I thought. Looking back now, it is clear there were signs, small cracks that I was oblivious to. Some of the comments or actions Megan did suggested something much more sinister. Something that was rather money-driven and self-serving. It began with the meetings. Initially, every single task was completed as a unit. Bringing in investors, developing features for the platform, planning out the company goals and vision for the future. However, over time Megan began to distance herself. She started important meetings without me, then telling me later that she didn't want to bother me with the details. I tried to convince myself that she was trying to be considerate. However, this started happening more often. She began attending investor dinners by herself, speaking with our biggest clients without me, and making company decisions independently. When I asked her about it, she claimed it was all in the best interest of the company and that I should be more relaxed. "I simply want to ensure that we are prepared for whatever may come our way," she would say while flashing that beautiful smile of hers. "You've worked so much behind the curtains. Permit me to take care of this section." I believe she was telling the truth. After all, she is my best friend, so what could go wrong, right? Each passing month made me feel as though my incorporation is turning out to be my own personal prison. I was putting all of the necessary effort in, if not more, but it was Megan who seemed to capture everyone's gaze, receive all of the compliments, and, as I would later come to know, all of the winnings too. That day can only be equated to that horrible feeling when you get punched in the stomach. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was processing some files for the company such as their finances, legal stuff, and contracts. Normal business for me, you know? But while I was watching those files, I began spotting inconsistencies. Megan's name is the only one listed on the owning documents of the company. That could not have been correct. It's hard to fathom, but I remember we had built this company as partners. We even agreed on a 50-50 split. I proceeded to sort through a plethora of documents, scrutinizing the filings, the details of the company structure, anything and everything I could find. And there it was, etched in black ink on white paper. Megan owned 100% of company. There was no mention of my name, no place allocated for a co-founder, nor was there an option for an investor. Nothing. I felt nauseous. How was this even possible? What the hell went wrong? I rushed to call my Megan, and as I dialed her number, my hands trembled violently. Unsurprisingly, she did not pick up. I ended up leaving a message, and mind you, it took every ounce of strength to keep my voice from wavering, but with every second, I felt like I was ready to burst. I had given her my all, my time, my energy, my skills. We built this company together, so how could it feel like I had vanished into thin air? After a few days, Megan was still unresponsive. She was never at her office, and whenever I called, she was always either busy or out of the country. I reached out through emails and texts but received no replies. The woman who I once considered to be my closest friend, who had all my hopes and aspirations with me, was not in contact anymore. I soon started to hear from the grapevine. Megan was attending exclusive parties to which she has been invited by high-profile vanguards while talking about expanding the firm internationally. The worst part was she took all the glory for everything we created as a team. And to think of it, she did not even bother to acknowledge me. But more than anger, in reality, I was heartbroken. Am I supposed to accept the things that Megan, my closest friend and teammate in doing all the wrongdoings, has done? How can one share such a deep and horrifying betrayal? For the next couple of weeks, I tried to come up with a plan, all the while remaining in shock. Every last penny that I had earned, every single hour that I spent working, every ounce of energy I put in, these were all things I devoted to the dream that we both worked for tirelessly. Everything that we both showed is now abandoned. I was left with nothing. All of it was snatched, everything disappeared, and Megan took it all. As the shock began to wear off, it was replaced by something else, determination. Megan may have blindsided me, but it wasn't something I was going to let happen without a fight. I had worked too hard and sacrificed too much to just let this go. I was going to battle back. I was going to get my property. If you're not subscribed to our channel, the chances you see it again are slim. But if you are, congratulations. You can now access the most captivating stories at your convenience. As I began to dwell on everything that had happened, I was beginning to be filled with rage rather than devastation. It wasn't all about the money, although that was still a bitter loss. It was the betrayal that dug the deepest. We were supposed to be a team, but it was clear in that moment Megan had ditched me without even a second thought. I couldn't afford to sit back passively on this one. Allowing her to walk away unscathed while erasing my efforts in the company was unjust. Simply put, I was owed compensation, and in times where I feel wronged, justice must be served. Finding a lawyer was essential, so I did just that. After some searching, I was able to get in touch with Amy, a Chicago-based attorney without any nonsense. When I discussed the situation with her, explaining how Megan cut me out of the ownership after doing all the groundwork, she instantly offered help. "I'll do everything I can to help you," were her first words to me. The way she spoke made me feel as though I could trust her, and that's exactly what I ended up doing. She continued to say, "Any fraud or deception that has been done will be uncovered." Deception. The one word that resonated with me. It was so simple yet so powerful. At the end of the day, that is exactly what Megan did. Seeing all her efforts while I worked late shifts made me trust her blindly, which turned out to be a massive mistake. First, Amy looked into the legal and financial details of the company. I was not able to do this much on my own, but when she started snooping, the truth came out. Megan had been stealthily altering the company's ownership network over a period of months. She had consistently been shifting assets into her name, taking my signature off key paperwork, and even drafting new contracts that completely excluded me. All of this had been executed very quietly, in such a subtle fashion that by the time I realized it, it was too late. "It's classic corporate betrayal," Amy said during one of our meetings. "Megan's been set on this for some time. But don't worry, you have emails, text messages, contracts. There's more than enough information proving you were a partial owner. We can prove you were part of the founding team." I nodded, feeling relief but anger at the same time. While I am glad I have a fighting chance, the fact that I have to go through this, for a lack of better terms, against a close friend, is quite frankly depressing. I attempted to tackle Megan once more. This time, I did not care about being courteous. I phoned, emailed, and even turned up at her office again, with Amy as my companion. I refused to be dismissed. I needed to know. When we got the office, the receptionist informed us that Megan was unavailable. I knew that she was lying. It was obvious that Megan was avoiding me. She had been from the moment I uncovered the reality. Amy said, "Tell her we are here for official business. Megan will want to speak with us before things spiral out of control," she said with an edge. The receptionist, who smiled timidly at us, vanished out of the smiling. A few minutes later, Megan came out with an empty-looking expression, but the tension in her gaze gave her away. She was not confident like she used to be. "Emma," was all she said, her tone as flat as a ruler. "I've been trying to get in contact." "Have you?" I replied, full of anger. From under the surface, there was a bubbling feeling just waiting to emerge. "Because it looks like you've been doing everything in your power to avoid me."